Let's take a look at the Chimney Sweeper from Songs of Innocence by William Blake. I'm projecting the original lithograph from the book so you can experience it as Blake's audience would have experienced it. Blake did the graphic design for this page as well as writing the poem, so it gives us a little bit of insight into his view of the poem and what he thought about Little Tom Dacre and the chimney sweeps in general. Remember that this is from Songs of Innocence, so let's look at the bottom of it, at the illustration, and this is the part of the poem where the boys wake up from their coffins and they're running in the stream. And it's a beautiful illustration with these joyful figures in a green pasture, which would have been the opposite of the dark, dirty, sooty world of London where the chimney sweeps lived and worked. So it begins, "When my mother died, I was very young, and my father sold me, while yet my tongue could scarcely cry, weep, 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 weep." Look at that line carefully, and that line only makes sense when you read it out loud. The child lisping sweep, S-W-E-E-P, sounds like the word weep or cry. So there is a pun in that line. There is a double meaning to that word that gives the poem some depth. And in the second stanza, we look at the image of little Tom Dacre, who cried when his head that curled like a lamb's back was shaved. And that image of the lamb comes in there with some kind of symbolic significance, because this is the Songs of Innocence. Lambs are innocent, they're baby animals, but we also have a reference to a Christian allusion to Christ the Lamb of God who was sacrificed. And the speaker of the poem is an older sweep who is talking to the young boy, clearly distressed, and trying to comfort him. And he says, "Hush, Tom, never mind it, for when your head's bare, you'll know that the soot cannot spoil your white hair." When you go on to read the Nurmi article about the chimney sweeps, you'll visit the horrifying conditions under which they work. They lived day and night with soot. They slept on their bags of soot, and their life expectancies were very, very short. So the last part of the poem, the next 1, 2, 3 stanzas, is little Tom's dream, and that dream takes us down to the illustration at the bottom of the page. And in this dream, thousands of sweepers, Dick, Joe, Ned, and Jack, were all of them locked up in coffins of black. Now that coffin image has some metaphorical significance. If you think of the dark, dirty, sooty, black world that the chimney sweeps are living in as a living coffin for their life. And the angel, and that's the angel is the figure down here in the poem, had a bright key, and he sets them free. And then they move to an area that's entirely different from the area where they live. Then down a green plain, leaping, laughing, they run, and wash in a river, and shine in the sun. And there's a kind of Neoplatonism in this poem. The Neoplatonism is very simply good equals light or bright or the sun, and bad equals dark or black. So they move from a dark world into a light one only after they perceive they have died. And then they hit another kind of innocence, naked and white, as in naked into the world I came. And they get playtime instead of being exploited as child workers. And Tom, the angel tells Tom, if he'd be a good boy, he'd have God for his father and never want joy. Now, some people may read this straight, that this is just a Christian dogmatism, that God will take care of you and you shouldn't worry. But we want to look at the irony in the last poem. Here is a little boy who is probably not going to live past 8 or 9, if that much. And God is supposed to protect him, but actually, in fact, does not. And Tom awakes, and because it's a song of innocence, and Tom is naive and innocent, he thinks this is a good thing. Okay, so it says, So Tom awoke, and we rose in the dark, and got with our bags and our brushes to work. Though the morning was cold, Tom was happy and warm. Tom is fortified by this dream. Tom is uplifted by this dream. But in fact, the dream is a lie. So the last line of the poem, "So if all do their duty, they need not feel harm," is best understood if we read it as heavily ironic. That is, these boys will die, they will die young, they will die before they have a chance to live, because they are doing their duty, because they are doing their work. And so, in fact, they should feel harmed, they should feel terrified, but they are left with the illusion that God is going to take care of them, which is not true. So the poem turns on its irony, and it's a really classic example of irony in literature, and one that should be read very carefully. Thank you for listening.